All right, everybody. So, as you know, we do this once a month where we get together and do some sort of training related to a topic or a subject that we all deem important to us and to what we do. One of them that has been coming up a lot is since we do a lot of not just residential, but a lot of residential. Um, Massachusetts has a lot of amendments which go not just to residential, actually deals with commercial too. And we should all be aware probably of the general topics, but also where to find the answers to any of the questions. Um, and the first thing I want to show you is where are those amendments and what are they? So there is the International Building Code, which we have under, if you go to project management, 2015, that's the version that we've been using. Some of it has been changed to 2018. That's why we have 2018 and 2015. So here we have all the IBC related. So International Building Code, International Existing Building Code, International Energy Conservation Code, International Residential Code right here, which is one of the most important ones that we use here. But then there is Massachusetts codes. Massachusetts codes has amendments that either delete, change, or modify something that's already on the IBC. Most states have adopted a version of the IBC or the International Codes Council, but they have made it so that it's adapted to their particular location. So this is the first thing I want you to all be aware of, that we have these codes and that they have amendments, right? We have some Maine amendments and Massachusetts amendments. So the amendments are here and they change from time to time. The ones that we have here that we are aware of, that we have right at our office, is something related to the Department of Public Health. And just to give you the gist of it, if you're doing some restaurants or some healthcare related projects, you will probably look into this because there are some requirements there that are probably different from what the code says. This is about the plumbing and heating. This is our version of ADA. So whenever people talk to me about ADA, I say, well, it's actually MAAB, which is Massachusetts Architectural Access Board. That's what we follow when we're gonna have to deal with projects that are related to public facilities or the accessible facilities in Massachusetts. There's also one for child daycare. This is particular to us, and they are numbered. So it's 105 CMR, 248 CMR, 521 CMR. You're like, what is CMR? So CMR stands for, I actually just Googled it because I wanted to make sure we got it. Code of Massachusetts Regulations. Is related to Massachusetts. So that's what those guys are called. Now, knowing what they are and which ones will care the most about access and the ninth edition residential code amendments are probably the ones that we would be using on a daily basis. There's another one here, but it's the same copy. I'm gonna delete it because I just scanned through it and it's the same copy as another one that we already have. And I have it open here. And for the interest of time, we won't be able to go through all of this, but at least I want you to know where they are and what topics you will find within them. And Marcus, you can correct me or add, as needed. So we have 780 CMR, which is related to residential. So this is for single and two family only. Okay. And it says right here all of the different headers of the things that we care about. In general, things that we have to be aware of is the requirements for egress openings are not the same in every state. Massachusetts has amendments to that. There are sections here that says that they don't have any amendments. There are other sections that say they do have amendments. By the way, here on the CMR versions of the amendments is where they establish the terms registered design professional. That's where they actually start saying, when do you need construction control, why. That's only something of Massachusetts that I am aware of. They start breaking out the roles of the inspector, the role of the architect, or the registered design professional, all of that. All of that's part of the CMR group. And to immediately jump onto the things that have, can come up, one of them has to do with the egress opening. Um, Remember that every bedroom shall be provided with an egress opening or an egress window. And the egress windows we've been using in our set, although very generals, this is the standard code egress opening. 5.7 square feet is the minimum for a standard as per the International Residential Code, but Massachusetts has amendments, and it changes depending on whether you are in grade or below grade, or basements are different, or if it's a single home versus a double home. Okay, so this, I'm going to be adding some text to this below that adds all of those exceptions. And we have one right here. Exception, 5.0 square foot allowed if located at grade or below grade. I don't think this is even accurate. So I'm gonna go in and take a look at it. So egress opening. I actually had it because I just shared it with you yesterday via WhatsApp. So let me just find what section it was, and that will be very quick, very simple. So it was section R 310.2. So I'm just gonna go R 310.2.1. So here it says minimum opening area. Emergency and escape rescue openings shall have a net clear opening of 5.7. That's what we have right now. And that's the same as in the building code, in the International Residential Code. But then it says, and by the way, it gives you minimums of what it needs to be in height or width. So whenever somebody asks you, oh, is this window going to work? You just gotta ask them what's the width and the height and the clear, the clear area. Then he has these exceptions. So grade floor or below grade opening shall have a net clear opening of not less than 5 square feet. So that's correct. That's what we have actually on our amendment note right here. 5. It cannot be less than that. But then it says single home or double home windows shall have a net clear opening of 3.3. So that's giving you already another, if it's a single home or a double home. In such cases, the minimum net clear opening dimension shall be 20 by 24 inches. Like that's the minimum it needs to be, 20 by 24 inches. In our case, because we do use single home or double home, 3.3 is acceptable. Marcos, what was the case that you had with a project in which we could go smaller? And that's I think it was with Reacher, Joseph Reacher, right?
Mhm. Yeah, that's correct. So what happens, guys, is that there are cases where you're in a basement and you don't have much headroom. If you think of a double hung, the double hung uses more area than a single hung. So what you need to pay attention is every scenario is different. So in this particular case, you will be able to use the 20 by 24 inches, and then you can either use a operable window, either a casement or in a way that you can open the entire opening of that clear dimension so you can actually exit. Now, just pay attention that, even if it says 20 inches minimum, 20 by 24 inches minimum, that's the clear dimension. So I wouldn't recommend you guys to be using 20 by 24 inches windows, because then you have that trimming in the side and it doesn't give you that clear width that you need to be able to exit. So even if they say 20 by 24, I would recommend it for you guys to even do 22 by 26 or something. Give yourself at least 2 more inches to play with. If that.
So in this case, for instance, we have this area right here and this little, I guess, mounting or frame, right? So the clear wouldn't be from here to here. The clear is actually what the opening ends up being, even when this piece right here goes up, right? Because they overlap like that. You need to think about what's your clear area, and it's not even the glass area. It's what is the opening? How much does it open, right? If so that's why we even put it in here, minimum clear, and we should probably have the other dimension that they mentioned here as a minimum, in here. So I'll update that a little bit better. But does this make sense to all of you? So and that's part of the Massachusetts amendment. So if you're working in Florida, this is different, right? This is going to be a different case, a different situation. So that's this piece right here. The other element I wanted to point out, that we've had, and I actually have made a mistake in my assessments, is that every every building, every residential building, single family, should have two means of egress. So if you're doing a basement unit, legal unit, it must have two means of egress. So that came up on a project that we're working on. And although we provide plenty of, like, egress openings and things like that, they actually need a door, an actual door. They allow you to have one primary one that gets you into a yard, which you can read in here. And but then they also they do allow you to go through a garage if needed. That's not the most, like, ideal, but it says that you could go through a garage for the primary, because there's a primary means of egress and a secondary means of egress. So the primary shall not require you to go through any other, um, um, but it has to go directly into a public way. But the secondary could get you into something else, and it does speak more into what the sizes of those are. By the way, when it says 32-inch, you do not use a 32-inch door. You use a 36-inch door. Why? Because it needs to be clear. And if you use a 32-inch door, you're gonna probably have like 28 inches, or 30 inches clear. That wouldn't work. And does that make sense? Everybody understand what I mean? So every time, that's why we use 36-inch doors for all the egresses, because that's the one that's gonna give you a 32-inch clear, which actually ties into all the things, and I'm not gonna get into it. But 32-inch is also the minimum for like a wheelchair to even be able to go through. So you wouldn't be able to use anything less for clearance. They do say something about the secondary having being 28. And that they say that's the minimum that it could potentially be. There are other requirements to doors, but I want you to know 780 CMR, R311.1, right? This area, you can start finding information about minimum opening area, egress windows, and things like that. Sprinkles, same thing, starts telling you why and where and how, right? About all of these different things. By the way, this is what inspectors use when they're reviewing our drawings. Why do I know that? Because they've sent it to me. They said, listen, you're not looking at this part, or you missed this, or have you looked at that? So that's where we are. I have made the wrong assessment of using the International Building Code to calculate how many egress doors I needed, primary and secondary, given the occupant load. Well, in this case, Massachusetts does not care about the occupant load. The minimum you need to provide is 2. And if the occupant load requires more, then you go with more. But you can never provide less than 2 for a dwelling unit. So whenever we do an attic unit or a basement unit or any type of unit, we have to figure out how to provide 2 means of egress, 2 ways of getting out. And like I say, one could be through something, and the other one is directly into a right of way. Then there are other requirements about stairs, by the way. So stairs, all of you will learn at school the 7-11 rule, right? 7 in the riser and 11 in the depth, I think it is, right? So Massachusetts for residential is different. It allows up to, I think, 8.25 right here, boom, for the riser height. So when you have windows, stairs that are having a hard time or having issues with them, you could probably make it work by changing the family, duplicating the family, and making it to the Massachusetts code. All of this, it has to also do with the fact that Massachusetts is a very historic state, and if they didn't have these amendments, they would not be able to. They would have to tear apart a lot of the buildings that they have. Like it would just not work. So they allow you to do different things like that. One more that just come to my mind right now has to do with when we're doing our calculations, structural calculations. So when we do our structural calculations, all of you are using the same software, and hopefully all of you have been familiar or have seen some of the videos that we have. When we're doing a roof calculation, we live on a snow country. We live in Massachusetts, right? So there's a lot of snow. So every town has its own actual snow load that you should be using. And hopefully I have it somewhere. Maybe it's at the beginning. So yeah, there you go. So every town has its own particular loads for roof snow loads. Okay. And literally it goes from the A, all the Andover. Well, ground snow load X. We really just care mostly about the snow load on the roofs. We don't necessarily care about the rest. But those are the loads. By the way, when it says minimum flat roof snow load, is using the worst case scenario. Flat roofs are, in fact, when you're doing calculations for roofs, basically they're mentally they're flat, right? You're using them as though they're flat. So you will use these numbers onto the structural calculation software. And we have Beverly, and they vary. They might not vary a whole lot, but they do vary. And inspectors have pointed it out to us already that, hey, are you using this town? In my opinion, all of you should read through these 99 pages at some point, right? It's not like a nice, awesome book that you want to read, but you are all in the design industry, right? Like, you know how to drive, you had to learn how to drive. So it's the same equivalent. This is our car, this is our tools, this is the rules and regulation that dictate how we do architecture. So we should all be familiar. This is where I learned why I needed to be licensed to do more than one and two family projects, the 35,000 cubic feet rules, a bunch of different things. If you also ever wanted to be a builder and you wanted to get your builder's license in Massachusetts, you need to know this. It goes into things that we already have, like locations of smoke detectors in our life safety. This is actually taken right off of this R314.1.1. We just put it right in here. And that's coming out of those amendments. So if we're doing a project in New Hampshire, you do not use this. You find whether they have amendments or not. Oftentimes, I think you can go through their website. Just like in Massachusetts, if this changes, you could just write Massachusetts, amendments to International Residential Code, and you go to a .gov, which is a legit government, website, and it will give you what's going on, what the amendments are, and all of those things. I don't think I have a whole lot more to add. If you take anything away from here, is that we do have the amendments, that stairs are different, egress windows are different, snow loads are different. Amount of egress doors, primary and secondary, are different from what the International Residential Code gives you. And you should really read these and understand the language of all of these different elements. I do not have anything else, Marcos, unless you have something else. And you can browse around. All of this is in here. We have this one, the one that I mentioned, the ADA, the MAB. Say I was gonna say ADA is a critical one for restaurants. When you're doing a restaurant, when you're doing for the bathrooms, they all need to comply with that. So if you're doing a restaurant in Massachusetts, you will go to this 521 CMR. And by the way, this is not a joke. This is serious. If you get it wrong, the owner could be sued, and the owner could sue you afterwards too for not complying with the Massachusetts Architectural Accessibility Board requirements. So, and they have all these sketches for how the clearances for everything. It's a question that we get a lot. Julio probably is aware, when we're doing these 18 units in Lynn, the first thing the electrical engineers and everybody asks is, are there any MAB units? Because there's a different set of parameters, a different set of rules for all of those. So we will update our egress window here, and we'll make sure that it has the latest information. I want you all guys to also be aware that sometimes you use a project as a reference and it doesn't have the latest, but the latest template does have the latest. So when I'm reviewing drawings, I tell you, go back to the latest template. For instance, I think Laura was using Glendinning, the project from Glendinning, and the codes that were here, although New Hampshire is different, but they don't have the latest information. Even if you're going to work on another project in another state, you start with the latest of what we have on the template, and then we can update it from there. And with that being said, I hope this is helpful. All of you know exactly where to find these codes, this project management 2015 mass codes, and they're in here. And hopefully, we can continue to do great architecture. Thank you, guys.